Welcome. In this short video, we'll walk you through creating an action by exploring by area of interest in the NC Flood Resiliency Blueprint tool. Let's get started. We will start by navigating to the Flood Risk Management page and selecting the I want to explore risk and resiliency action options. We can use this option to identify which areas within the jurisdiction are most vulnerable to flooding. This includes the buildings, roads, or areas that are most at risk of flooding impacts. The tool allows you to explore on your own, which means that you will be looking at the map and navigating to things based on what you see, or you can view suggestions, which will give you a list of the most impacted buildings or roads in the area. In the Explore on Your Own option, you will initially see a heat map that aggregates data for a given area based on the impact type that is selected on the left. In this case, the heat map is based on the building's risk score. The risk score is calculated by dividing the annualized loss estimate by the building's replacement value. This removes costs from the calculation of flood risk, so any two buildings of the same size would have the same risk score for the same flood depth. The risk score displayed when the cursor is moved over each heat map cell is the aggregation of the risk scores for each of the buildings in that cell. If the risk score in a cell is 21, it means that the total risk score for all buildings in that cell is 21. As we zoom in closer, the map will show more details. If we zoom in and hover over the map, we can find problem areas within the jurisdiction. As we continue to zoom in, we start seeing the building footprints that have risk scores above 0. To zoom back out, we can select the Home button in the lower right corner. We will now choose the Annualized Loss Estimate Impact type, which will show an estimate of dollars of loss for buildings each year related to flood damage. This is correlated to the flood risk score and looks very similar to the building risk score. When we look at the building flood depth, the map will show the number of buildings that would be impacted by the chosen flood interval event. If we change the recurrence interval, the number of buildings impacted by the chosen flood interval events in the same area will increase at the 500-year recurrence interval. Once we zoom in further, we start to see building footprints and which areas have buildings at risk. Here, we can see that the dark purple buildings are at risk of experiencing more than 5 feet of flooding during the 100-year event. If we click on one of the buildings, we can see more information about the potential damages and flood depths for each recurrence interval, as well as the building's characteristics. For this building, we can see that the 25-year flood event is expected to incur a structural cost of $152,000 and a contents cost of $166,000 due to 6 feet of flooding compared to the first floor elevation. We can see there's a 96% probability that this event will occur over a 30-year period. We can expand the building elevation details to see the first floor elevation, the lowest adjacent grade, the highest adjacent grade, and the base flood elevation at the building. We can also expand the building characteristics to view the occupancy type, heated area, foundation type, number of stories, year built, and the structural replacement value. Selecting View Suggestion is another way we can explore impacts. We can view 5 to 50 suggestions, but for this demonstration, we will look at the top 10 buildings by flood depth. Here, we can see the list of impacted buildings. The list will show the 10 buildings at the highest risk for each recurrence interval. We can scroll across the table to view the 100-year flood event and see the corresponding flood depth. If we click on the building ID we want to see, we can see exactly where the building is on the map. This can help identify the areas where there are buildings at risk. Next, we will look at the 100-year flood road inundation impact points. To see the road inundation points, we will zoom in closer and start to see the road inundation points in these flood hazard areas. Here, we can click on any of the points to obtain more information about the selected road segment that has been impacted. For these points, we see that the flood depth above the road exceeds 2 feet, indicating that this area of the road could become inundated during the flood event and become hazardous. For more information about how the annualized loss estimates and risk scores are calculated, please see the technical documentation for building mitigation actions and risk scoring in the data repository. That's it. You've just learned how to create an action by exploring by an area of interest in the NC Flood Resiliency Blueprint tool. For more help, visit youtube.com/@ncdeq.